I jump into this video, I should probably mention that on top of snoring dogs, you may well hear my local birds being quite noisy. It is a lovely spring day outside right now, and they've been really making their presence known today. So let's move on to this video. This is a creator who I've just stumbled across. Now, it says here she's got 103 videos, but of those 103, 101 are short videos. So she's only put out 2 long form videos on her channel, and this is one of them. I found it to be quite enjoyable. It is addressing the same things that I'm always addressing, so I thought it would be interesting to hear it from someone else's perspective, and in this case someone who is a Canadian now living in Australia. So let's jump in and listen to her video looking at why people are scared of Australia. Should people be scared of Australia?
Australia is the most deadly place on the planet if you're a tourist to visit. Or is it? G'day, my name's Alexandra, I live in Australia, and today I want to talk about how to stay safe in Australia as a tourist. I made a short satire video about how to stay safe in Australia.
How to stay safe from Australian wildlife for tourists.
To my absolute surprise, this video got over 40 million views across TikTok and Instagram. And let's just say for a lot of the viewers, the element of satire did not come across, with the majority of the viewers being overseas and commenting things like, and in addition to the comments stating how scared they were to visit Australia, many comments did point out that I actually never said how to stay safe in Australia. I want to talk about the facts and the myths about how dangerous is Australia for tourists.
That is so often the way, isn't it? Someone makes a video joking about everything in Australia wants to kill you, and people from overseas just take it really, really seriously, and as proof that no, you should never go to Australia, because if you go to Australia, you're going to die. Well, you know, there's what, 27, 28 million of us here. We're still alive.
So starting off with one of the biggest fears that people hold about coming to Australia, and that is the giant spiders. Giant spiders that haunt your nightmares are often fairly elusive. Probably how they've gotten to be such a giant size because they haven't been sent in somebody's house. Spiders that you are most likely to encounter are the huntsman spiders, and while still completely disgusting, they are totally harmless. Unless they surprise you while you're driving and you end up flipping your car and driving into a tree.
Yep, I had an aunt who was originally from the UK, and when I was really, really little, she wrote her car off because of a huntsman dropping out of the sun visor. And yes, if I find a huntsman in my car, there's a good chance I'm going to be pulling over as soon as I can and jumping out of that car and doing whatever I can to get that damn spider out of my car before I drive it again. She's definitely got the idea. I think she's definitely assimilated and is starting to become a little bit more Australian. That said, at the same time, I don't think of as huntsmen as giant spiders. When I hear giant spiders, I think of something that you're going to find in the Amazon jungles. Huntsmen are big spiders, but I wouldn't go as far as saying giant. And yeah, they're harmless.
Then they are pretty harmful. The venomous spiders that you have a chance of seeing as a tourist are most likely the Sydney funnelweb,
Most dangerous spiders in the world,
and the redback spider. And while these spiders are venomous, you are already terrified of spiders. If you see any spider, you're going to be running away so fast that thing's not going to have a chance. In fact, there have been no deaths attributed to spider bites in Australia since 1979. Let's not cancel our flights to Sydney over the giant spiders.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Okay, it's also worth recognising where you're likely to encounter these spiders, and that is that they like to hide away in dark spots. So for starters, most people in Australia know not to leave your shoes sitting outside, or if you do, flip them over and give them a really good bang and a really good shake before you put them on. And in terms of redbacks, if you're out in the garden. That's why people in Australia use gardening gloves. And if you're going to pick up something in a garden, it's probably a good idea to flip it over first. Like if it's a big rock or a big log, which also most people in Australia know. So it's probably something that for people coming from overseas is worth knowing. Don't leave your shoes outside. Don't don't pick up anything like logs or rocks or something in the garden unless you've flipped it over first to make sure there isn't a redback living underneath it. All those kinds of things. But like she said, they're not going to come after you. Most of the time, you're going to be lucky enough to see them, and then you can avoid them.
But how about the venomous snakes?
Australia.
We've got the most venomous snakes, there's no doubt about that.
While there is a large variety of venomous snakes in Australia, you're probably not likely to encounter one at your hostel. Snakes are pretty keen to stay the fuck away from people.
I'm in danger.
Just like people are keen to stay the fuck away from snakes. Well, most people.
Death stalks you at every turn!
The reality is the most likely place you are to encounter a snake is on a bushwalk. It is important to recognize the real threat that a venomous snake could pose, but the reality is that you're not going to run into a venomous brown snake on the steps of the Sydney Opera House. So if you're scared of snakes, just stay out of the long grass.
I think basically you need to know that if you're coming to Australia and you're not in a suburban area, then even on the path you need to pay attention to your surroundings. If you see a snake, stop and wait for it to go. Just give it a good distance. It'll cross the path, it'll take off, you'll never see it again. Or if it happens to be sleeping on the path, turn around and go the other way, or go around it, take a wide berth. They're not going to go at you for the most part. Sure, some snakes get cranky when they first come out of hibernation. And yeah, then you've got to watch them a bit more carefully. I know copperheads in Tasmania are nasty buggers around October, November. But for the most part, you know, once they've been out of hibernation for a while, they tend to become a little bit more docile. They've eaten, they're a bit more happy, I guess.
If you come here as a tourist, you're definitely going to be going in the ocean. And starting with the most front-of-mind threat that you'll find in the ocean, sharks. However, sharks are not a unique threat to Australia. Sharks cause injuries and fatalities in all parts of the world, and that's because we're entering their home. We don't go wandering into the savannah and be like, oh, why did I get mauled by a lion? Anytime we go swimming in the ocean, there is going to be a risk associated with marine life, including sharks. And in Australia, patrolled tourist beaches have drone surveillance, lifeguards, they have shark nets. They are really trying to help you to stay safe from sharks.
She's really good with the simple logic here, isn't she? It's like pointing out to people that these hazards aren't really hazards for everyday tourists. Now here's the other thing. If you're a tourist, chances are if you're going in the water, you're going to be swimming, which means that you hopefully will be swimming at a beach that is a popular beach, because that's where tourists usually end up. So there probably will be lifeguards, there probably will be other people in the water. The majority of shark attacks occur when people are surfing. You don't get as many tourists heading out surfing as heading out swimming. So, and if you're a tourist who surfs, then you're probably aware of these hazards anyway, and you know to take precautions, etc. You know to probably check with locals if it's a safe area to surf. All those kinds of things.
But there is a much more unseen hidden threat that you should be aware of, and that is jellyfish. Box jellyfish and irukandji jellyfish are the two main culprits to be aware of. They inhabit the northern tropical waters of Western Australia, Northern Territory, and Queensland, and predominantly in the summer months from November to May. While you may be thinking, hey, isn't that where the Great Barrier Reef is? Yeah, you're right, that is where the Great Barrier Reef is. Never fear, because spear suits are here to ensure when you're meeting Nemo that you're also not going to meet the Grim Reaper.
She has a quite an amusing way of giving this factual information. She doesn't over-traumatize anything. She doesn't tell people they're stupid. She just tells it as it is. I really hope that she does some more of these long-form videos because she's actually quite amusing and I quite enjoy her content. And as for the risks of jellyfish, etc., around the Great Barrier Reef, there's also the fact that if you are going to be snorkeling or scuba diving or whatever around the Great Barrier Reef, then you're going to be doing that with a tour company anyway, who are, you would hope, if there is a whole bunch of jellyfish out there one day, that they would cancel the tour, and you would also hope that they would provide you with the right equipment, and they would also have sufficient first aid on their boat on the rare occurrence of something actually happening.
One other major player in who the fuck is gonna get me next is the saltwater crocodile.
This croc has enough power in its jaws to rip my head right off.
Saltwater crocodiles are found along the northern coast, again in Western Australia, Northern Territory, and Queensland. Although you may hear overblown stories about giant spiders in Australia, the stories about giant crocodiles are absolutely not overblown. There is actually this amazing hack that will save you from sharks, crocodiles, jellyfish, and yourself. Do not swim wherever the fuck you want. Recent studies show that 20 international visitors a year are unalived from drowning. That is an insane number. Riptides, inexperience, large waves are much more of a threat to Australian tourists than any other wildlife in Australia. This is because they're not perceived as a threat. If you want to stay safe while swimming in Australia, swim at patrolled beaches between the red and yellow flags. Look for and read safety signs. Recognize hazards and dangers. Avoid swimming or any recreational activities alone. Never swim at unpatrolled beaches and never swim at night.
And, you know, these are all things that most Australians are raised knowing. You don't do these things. But it's mind-blowing that you actually do have to point these out for tourists. You hear of tourists who do dumbass things and you just think, why? You know, there's signs there warning you. In Australia, you come to Australia, if there's a sign there that's warning you about a hazard, you need to pay attention. Because it could be the last sign that you ever read. I love that she's just so spot on with all this.
Just before we move out of the ocean, one last thing to remember. Don't just go picking shit up in the ocean in Australia.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
The blue ring octopus to the cone snail to the stonefish. There's a large number of unsuspecting things that would be more than happy to fuck you up. Best rule of thumb is just leave it the fuck alone.
Now, I had considered bleeping out her language, but I think the way this is done is actually, that is part of this whole video that she's created. It's part of what she's trying to put out there, and it also shows that she's clearly been in Australia for a while and she's starting to speak like an Australian. Because, well, Australians do drop the F-bomb so often. So I apologise if anyone is offended by her language and by me not bleeping it out. I just thought it added to the humour of what she was saying, and I think it was an intentional choice on her part in this video, so who am I to argue with her creative choices?
Lastly, I want to finish on some of the more unsuspecting wildlife that you might need to watch out for in Australia. While kangaroos are a symbolic icon of Australia, kangaroos, if not respected, could fuck you up. There's this super bizarre trend of Americans talking about if they could win a fight with a kangaroo, with many speculating that they could.
Well, now I will tell you, it's kind of in my dream to fight a kangaroo.
If you were to box a kangaroo, you would get your guts handed to you by Skippy. Give kangaroos their space.
Okay, I hadn't actually heard of any trend of Americans wanting to box kangaroos. But that suddenly explains some of the recent videos that have popped up, which have made it look like kangaroos are being just super aggressive, when in reality it's quite possible that those people have basically got up in their space and become aggressive towards them. I can remember one time being on Maria Island and watching a pair of male roos obviously fighting, and when you see how much power they have, their tails are so strong that the power when they kick is just phenomenal. And you look at how sharp that big claw is on their foot. Geez, I tell you what, you would not want to be behind that. If a kangaroo went at you with its back feet like that, with those claws, yeah, you would be in serious trouble.
Next on the list is magpies.
Swooping magpies have good reason for their actions. They're just being protective parents.
If you do get swooped by a magpie, or worse, a plover, stay calm, cover your head, and try and seek shelter.
Okay, you're kind of best off trying to take preventative measures beforehand. Like, if you are riding a bike and you know where a magpie is, get off your bike and just wheel it and walk quietly past the area where the magpie is, giving the poor thing plenty of space. Same with plovers. If one is going at you, don't run, because chances are they're going to connect with you. Sure, cover your head, and sure, head for shelter, but really what you need to do is just get out of their space, but not running, because then they're just going to become more aggressive. At the end of the day, you're best off just trying to give them a wide berth. If you know where there is a magpie, where it's nesting, or where there's a plover that's nesting, if you can just be quiet and calm as you go past that area, there's a far smaller chance of them actually attacking you.
Lastly on the list is yourself. You are truly the biggest threat to yourself while you're visiting Australia. And you can protect you from yourself by following local advice and staying up to date with current information, by following the rules about swimming in Australia, and giving the wildlife in Australia the space and respect that it deserves. Thanks so much, guys. My name's Alexandra. If you like content about Australia and travel, please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe.
I definitely enjoyed that video, and I definitely recommend her channel. Just so succinct, straight to the point. You know, tells it as it is, basically. And yeah, she does sound like she's definitely assimilated and is becoming very much Australian, especially given the number of F-bombs that she dropped throughout the video. So thanks for watching. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button and leave a comment below. What did you think of this video? Do you think she made some good points? Are there other points that you would add to this video in terms of advice for visitors from overseas, how they can keep themselves safe in Australia? So thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.